Have you ever started a new character where you basically just go with the flow without a real plan on how it's gonna turn out? You simply let it take you to wherever it may and enjoy the ride along the way? Well, that's how my new Bladedancer build, Phantom Flurry, came to life. This is by no means a revolutionary build, but it's fun and different and can be enjoyed by both beginners and advanced players. Alright, so let's proceed to the juicy stuff.
Yummy!
If you find that you like this video, feel free to subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for upcoming videos. And remember to hit the like button. Our AoE offensive skill is Shadow Cascade. We keep it scaled with our attack speed, so we don't invest in the Crushing Darkness node. We add max points in the Onslaught and Fight in the Shadows nodes for mana management purposes, and full points in the base crit chance and crit multiplier through the Precision and Carnage nodes. Also, the Gloomstalker node gives us 40% chance to create shadows, which will give us much more area of effect as well. So, we need to talk about Flurry, our single target offensive skill. The most important thing to note here is that Flurry will deal more damage per second the more hits in a row we land. One of the reasons of this is due to the Adrenaline Rush, which grants us 5% more damage and 5% more attack speed per stack. In combination with the Strained Reflexes node, we'll gain up to 6 stacks if we can land several hits in a row. This works well with the Relentless node as well, as it gives us 4% more attack speed per hit. It's also important to invest maximum points in the Incision node for crit multiplier. Now, when we first talk about crit multiplier, let's have a look at the Decoy skill. With the Ambush node, we gain our dodge chance while we have Decoy active as added crit multiplier for 4 seconds after Decoy expires. Now, we'll go deeper into how we stack dodge chance in a minute, but this will basically give us around 70% crit multiplier. And with the backup buddy node that gives us an additional charge of Decoy, we just go 6 seconds without having this crit multiplier buff active if we use Decoy whenever it's available. The Efficient Construction node is important to reduce the mana cost, and the Warning Sound node gives us haste for 5 seconds after using Decoy, which is quite neat. Next up is Smoke Bomb. The most important things to note here is the maximum points invested in this node for continuously applying slow and armor shred to enemies, and also the Smoke Blades node. Now this is a really powerful node. Not only does it provide 30 flat melee damage, but the effect can also stack. This means that if we stay in the smoke cloud, each second will give us 30 flat melee damage, which is insane. We also invest maximum points in the node, giving us 100% chance to create a shadow inside the smoke cloud per second. This is great if we need to leave the smoke cloud for some reason, as we can then use Shadow Cascade outside and still do damage to enemies inside the smoke cloud. As for Shift, an important node to max out is the Kill Threshold node, as that's really important for bosses. Basically, whenever a boss is down to 16% health, you can use Shift to kill it. Another important node is obviously the Dancing Shadows node that procs Shadow Cascade on Shift, as well as the Swift Recovery node for mana management. The Shadow Slip node is also important, making us invulnerable while using Shift. Now, I really want to hear what you think about the format of this build guide video compared to my other build guides, so go ahead and leave a comment below if you want. And if you haven't checked out my other last Epoch build guides yet, there is a link to the playlist containing all of them in the description. Now, in terms of gear, we got some decent items here. The build doesn't really require any unique items to make it work, but I would recommend going for the Gambit of an Erased Rogue Relic, which gives us +1 to all rogue skills and increasing our chance to gain damage reduction per active shadow. You could obviously go with other unique items of any type that fit the build, but you can just as easily go for Exalted gear. It depends on how much details you want to tweak and how much corruption you eventually want to push. I will mention one thing about the gear we have here though, and that's the missing endurance. As you can see, the threshold is fairly decent, but at the moment we lack that additional damage reduction through endurance that would make this build substantially more tanky. The foot of the mountain boots is a candidate to use here, but basically any extra high tier endurance stat would be great. Now, that being said about the endurance, we do have a fairly decent survivability through our dodge rating being pretty steady around 70%, as well as the 71% chance for hits being glancing blows, thus giving us 35% damage reduction on those hits. But we'll get more into details about that soon. Also, our void resistance obviously needs some boosting as well, but I'm not too worried about that. If you play a timeline with many void damage enemies or doing a void damage boss, you can just add some void resistance idols and you'll be fine. As for the different item bases, I think there's only 2 that we really need to pinpoint, and that's the Jade Amulet for melee attack speed and the Dragon Visage Amulet for increased crit multiplier. As you can see, my Jade Amulet is not even exalted. I play the character find mode where I cannot get items from other characters, so I just haven't gotten a great drop for that base yet. So there's definitely room for improvement there, which means that this build has the potential to go much further than where I'm currently at. For items, we want any of these important stats in combination. Increased crit chance per equipped sword, increased damage while wielding a sword, critical multiplier while dual wielding, and just basic critical strike multiplier. Apart from this, we also spend some idle slots on increased health, ideally in combination with flat health, as well as vitality and combination with increased physical damage. The last one can be swapped with any resistance you need to boost as well. As for blessings, the most important blessings to get are the critical strike multiplier from Raya, increased physical damage from the Emperor of Corpses, physical resistance shred chance from Herot, and increased dodge rating from the Fire Shamans. Apart from that, it's not that important what you choose for the other blessings. Now, let's look at the passives. This is where it all comes together. In the Falconer tree, we invest maximum points in the Outlander's Tenacity node, so that we get 15% of our maximum health as endurance threshold. For the Marksman tree, we invest 5 points in the Focus Fire node, just to get some extra dexterity and haste for 1 second after using Evade, which I use very often. The reason for using Evade as a movement skill is that we want to save shift for when there are enemies we want to either hit by proccing Shadow Cascade or kill with shift's kill threshold. For the Rogue tree, the Swift Assassin node is the best way to pump up damage early in order to progress your character fast. We're also investing full points in the Evasion node, giving us much less damage reduction while moving, which we'll be doing a lot of with this build. We're also gonna add maximum points in the Dodge and Parry node for the Glancing Blow chance. Simply add 20 of these points in this skill tree before starting to invest in the Bladedancer tree. When we have reached all the points needed there, we'll go back to the Rogue tree to add the final points. As for the Bladedancer tree, let's first have a look at the 3 nodes on top here. Cloak of Shadows gives us Dexterity and Glancing Blow chance, a really great node. In the next node we stack some health and chance to gain Dusk Shroud when we're hit, before maxing out attack speed and chance to gain Dusk Shroud on hit, also a fantastic node. Further, 5 points in the Flash of Steel node is important to get the attack speed bonus, as well as maxing out the Glancing Blow chance when wielding 2 swords. Since our hits are critical basically all the time, we also max out the critical multiplier node. Now, let's move up to these nodes. Here we'll stack increased damage when on full health, as well as maxing out our perfection stacks to 10. This gives us 10% increased damage per stack, and since we have 10 of these most of the time, well, you can do the math yourself. We further make it easier to reach the 10 stacks through 1 point in the Exuberance node, which gives us 2 stacks per melee hit. Now, the final and arguably the most important node for survivability is the Confidence node. This gives us 50 armor and 50 dodge rating per perfection stack, meaning that we have around an additional 500 armor and 500 dodge rating most of the time. If you remember the node in Decoy giving us our dodge chance as crit multiplier for 4 seconds after, this node also has a great synergy with that, and is a contributing factor to why we often reach around 70% dodge rating. Now, you should click on the video card showing on the screen to see more build guides, or click the playlist link in the description. And remember to like and subscribe to stay tuned for more videos coming up soon. Happy gaming!